sun and fair weather clouds. It'll be a bit milder, temps about 44. Mainly clear sky overnight, a few lonely clouds around, temperatures by morning near freezing. Tomorrow, a mixture of sun and clouds, temperatures 53. And on Thursday, maybe a few showers with a lot of clouds, could be a little sun. It'll be breezy and mild near 60. That's my forecast. I'm Mark Rosenthal.
Are you struggling with hearing loss? Do friends and family complain that your TV is too loud? Are you tired of asking people to repeat themselves? If you want to hear clearly again, but don't want a bulky hearing aid that makes you look old, you need to try Atom X by Audion Hearing. The Atom X is a life-changing breakthrough, precisely designed by top audio engineers, fits comfortably in your ear, is nearly invisible, and lets you adjust your sound so you can hear conversations clearly, at home, at dinner, or on the go. And right now, you can try the Atom X risk-free for 45 days. Call Audion Hearing now at 800-741-HEAR. That's HEAR for a 45-day risk-free home trial with free shipping and money-back guarantee. The Atom X is lightweight, rechargeable, practically invisible, and costs 90% less than prescription hearing aids. Don't miss out. Call 800-741-HEAR for complete details. That's 800.
This is the Money Matters Radio Network. WBNW 1120 AM and W275CM FM. Concord, Boston. The Money Matters Radio Network.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative Jake Auchincloss are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
When a heart stops, the clock starts. You are the first responder until help arrives. In that moment, 4 minutes equals brain damage. 6 minutes equals too late in an emergency. The first responder is you. We need you. Will you be ready? Learn CPR. Visit heart.org/nation. That's heart.org/nation.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
As a busy mom, my to-do list is full.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
Visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
As you navigate life after divorce, planning for your family's future becomes even more important. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. From everyday expenses to thinking about how college will be funded, it's important to have a clear plan for how all of your upcoming costs will be handled over time. Divorce also means adjusting to a new financial reality, where one household becomes two and your budget, saving strategy, and long-term goals may need to be reevaluated. Our new guide is called Divorce and Your Financial Plan, and it discusses ways to build a financial strategy that supports your family's next chapter. You can get your free guide today by calling 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001, or you can request the guide online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And today, we're talking about the use of life estates and your primary residence. Todd, what are the pitfalls associated with creating a life estate when you transfer the remainder interest to your children?
Yeah, this is the most common way people create life estates. It seems easy, it seems simple, but it's not the best way to create a life estate. Once you put your children's name on the deed, you give up a lot of control. Like you can't change your mind later if you want to leave it to one child versus another who might be taking care of you later. You have problems if you want to go to sell it, right? You might have the right to live there, but if you want to go to sell it, you're going to need the permission of the children in order to sign off on the remainder interest of the deed. And then even if they do sell it and you get their permission, a larger chunk of the proceeds are going to end up in the hands of the child rather than you. That creates adverse income tax consequences to the child, plus you who sold the house might need the money to buy another house or a downsized house or move, all of which create problems. Never mind creditor problems for the children while they're living. Folks, don't do the life estate this way because it seems to create more trouble than it's worth.
Learn how you can avoid probate, eliminate estate taxes, keep your money in your family, and protect your assets from the nursing home. Request this brand new guide from Cushing & Dolan. It's called Calculating the Consequences of a Life Estate. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can simply request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Paul Lane. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Paul Lane.
Good morning here on the Financial Exchange. If you liked what you saw in markets yesterday, then I do not have great news for you today, as we're getting a bit of a reverse course here in early trading. To mark what's gone on for the last 2 days, obviously over the weekend, the president delivered the ultimatum to Iran of negotiate or we will be striking energy facilities. Through back channels, it's been insinuated that there have been some productive conversations. Actually, it's not been insinuated. It's been plainly stated by the president that there's been some back channel and productive conversations with who in Iran. It's hard to say because there's a lot of lack of clarity about who specifically might have any sort of authority to negotiate anything in Iran, but enough to convinced the president that strikes should hold off on energy infrastructure. That was announced very early Monday morning, right around 7:15 a.m. via Truth Social post. Immediately, markets reversed course yesterday. You had futures off about 0.7%. They immediately swung up about 2.5%, but calmed down during trading, and we finished the day up around 1 to 1.25%, depending on which major index you're looking at. Oil prices also came down, but again, what happened was midway through trading yesterday, Iranian press said there was no conversation, there is no productive meetings, yada, yada, yada. So investors today, I think, are again behaving somewhat logically here. The thing that matters with all of this, just to see through all of the potential BS, because there's probably a lot of it at the moment. Mm-hmm. Seeing through all the potential BS, the thing that matters is, does traffic flow through the Strait of Hormuz? Right now, the answer is no, and so equity markets, I think, are taking a pause here. We are, again, right now off about 1/3% on the S&P 500. So we're a fair bit above where we were on Friday of last week, but not substantially. We're up less than 1% of where we were closing on Friday. And I think the answer is the status quo hasn't changed a whole lot. I think the one thing you can point to is that the worst fears that you had on Saturday or Sunday of, are we potentially going to strike some infrastructure that can't really come back from, and then Iran reaches out and strikes at energy infrastructure and at their neighbors. That worst case scenario was taken offline, but we didn't know about that worst case scenario on Friday. And so I think equity markets are kind of continuing their slog of, will this shutdown of energy infrastructure lead to the worst case scenario for a number of economies across the globe? Probably not the United States, but the worst case scenario in places like Singapore, Pakistan, and other countries that do not have strategic petroleum reserves and have already begun rationing energy in some cases.
And it also just further enforces the general concern that you have with the longer this lingers on, the more the impacts will be of greater significance to the global economy. And there was, of course, the reason for the market rally yesterday, some optimism out there that perhaps this would get resolved sooner or later. It seems like a lot of that optimism has been quelled today, as you mentioned, with markets selling off a little bit here. It's hard to have too much that is innovative or interesting to say on this, because it is so,
nobody knows anything.
Nobody knows anything, and it's so binary, to your point of, are things moving through that strait, or are they not? And it's obviously our job here to keep everyone apprised of what is going on. But other than that, it's just we are in a bit of a standstill at the moment. And it seems like, Mike, equity markets could care less about anything besides this. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but gone are the days of any discussion on really anything else regarding AI or any other market catalysts. Those have all been put by the wayside.
Yeah, and we continue to see evidence that there's just a lot of different interested parties in everything going on in Iran. Over the course of last week, around Thursday morning, you had foreign ministers from Egypt, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan gathering to try and find some diplomatic solutions to the war going on. One of their struggles, of course, was who exactly can we reach out to negotiate with? Who is going to have any sort of power to negotiate with any authority here on de-escalating in Iran, given the decapitation that has generally occurred to leadership across Iran. And to that end, it raises the question: does Israel see a cessation of hostilities the same way that we do? They continue to strike at leaders, some that have at least been hung out there by other Middle Eastern leaders as potential negotiating counterparts, right? The national security chief who was assassinated was considered maybe a viable partner. And so I keep going back to a few things. One, I do genuinely believe, based on his actions, that the president ties a lot of his, how do I phrase this? Our president ties a lot of his views of his own success to
the market,
to the equity markets and the oil markets. I think both of those things are very important to him in terms of what he views as his legacy. And we have seen several occasions, both in the first administration as well as in this administration, when equity markets become genuinely panicked, as they were kind of looking that way on Sunday evening into Monday, right? A 2.5% one-day drop on U.S. major indices is a fairly significant thing that can cause some other things to blow up. He has pivoted in order to benefit markets. I think that is true. At the same time, I think the important piece that investors may not be fully appreciating here is he's not the only one in control of this in the same way that it was with tariffs.
Couldn't agree with you more. In prep for the show this morning, there was, I believe it was a Natixis manager who was quoted in saying that this is the first time that it's not a one-sided gambit. And I really highlighted that because that is truly the biggest takeaway here. Is we've emphasized before that there has been a focus from President Trump to act to equity markets and try to ease some of the concerns. But when you're talking about callbacks to Liberation Day last year, when you're talking about assessing tariffs on specific nations, that's something that he has very direct control over. It can reverse course on and say, you know what, it's not 50%, it's 20%, or whatever the carve-outs end up being. This time, it's two different people. If you and I are in an argument or in some sort of dispute, two people have to come to an amends, and that is really a key point to make here.
Very different from Liberation Day of 2025.
Right.
Iran demanding restitutions for strikes, a guarantee by Israel and the United States that they won't strike in the future, and basically collecting toll payments in the Strait of Hormuz seems like a series of considerations that the United States and Israel would not be willing to come to. And so it is significantly different from these other events. Nonetheless, equity investors do continue to hang on to this seeming thread of hope that, hey, this may not spill over. Hey, this could be resolved quickly. And I think hence that's why they're keeping equity markets at this stage around 5% below where they were on Friday, February 27th. We've been hanging out around those levels. Yeah, oil markets have shot higher because of the facts on the ground there. If you want to buy a barrel of oil in the Middle East right now, you're not paying $90 a barrel. You're paying like $160 a barrel. The actual price at the moment compared to the futures contracts that we quote are very different. Right. And it's different than pricing in the equity market risk for U.S. companies. But again, going back to what matters here, there's going to be a lot of fog of war. Did conversations occur between anyone in Iran directly to the president? Did they occur through some back channel diplomacy, through neighboring countries who have a better relationship? Honestly, it matters to track the tone coming from Israel, Iranian leadership, and our president. Detecting changes in tones or what U.S. markets are going to reply to some degree. But if you want evidence of a resolution, it is ships moving through the strait.
Actions speak louder than words.
Actions are going to speak louder than words here because we are talking about physical shortages of all sorts of goods. And so that's what we're going to be keeping our eyes on. Easy to get distracted on the day-to-day moves here, especially when the moves are 3 percentage points in either direction for U.S. stocks. But keep your eye on the ball here. That is what ultimately matters rather than what Iranian state media says, Israeli media, or U.S. media says about the president's actions. That's what we've got to keep eyes on the ball on. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about this, kind of dual shock that we may be facing, that investors are, if you talk about the real concern that investors have about this event in Iran, the war in Iran, it's this dual shock to both prices and potentially growth. We'll be covering that next here on the Financial Exchange.
The Financial Exchange streams every day live on YouTube. Subscribe to our page and follow the markets all morning long. Only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Life estates are sometimes used to protect your home as part of your future, but it's important to understand how they really work before making any changes to your estate plan. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law and taxation. Their new guide, called Calculating the Consequences of Life Estates, explains the pros and cons and why careful planning is so critical. A life estate can allow you to remain in your home while transferring future ownership. But decisions like putting the property in your children's names versus using a trust can have very different consequences when it comes to taxes, control, and protection from creditors. Before you sign any deed or transfer property, be sure you understand your options. Call Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699 and ask for your free guide today. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
As you navigate life after divorce, planning for your family's future becomes even more important. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. From everyday expenses to thinking about how college will be funded, it's important to have a clear plan for how all of your upcoming costs will be handled over time. Divorce also means adjusting to a new financial reality, where one household becomes two and your budget, saving strategy, and long-term goals may need to be reevaluated. Our new guide is called Divorce and Your Financial Plan, and it discusses ways to to build a financial strategy that supports your family's next chapter. You can get your free guide today by calling 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001, or you can request the guide online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative Jake Auchincloss are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
Here at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we are committed to all students not only attending, but succeeding at school. Your presence is powerful. Share why you attend at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Daily financial content in your feed when you want it. Follow the Financial Exchange on Instagram. This is the Financial Exchange.
The Financial Exchange is incredibly proud to be a partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Planning is well underway for the 2026 DAV 5K. The event sold out in record time last year, so head to dav5k.boston for all the information about how you can participate this November or make a donation to support our great American heroes. Your gifts help fund free rides to medical appointments for veterans and the nation's first DAV-led housing initiative, providing homes for single veterans and veteran families. Go to dav5k.boston and make your donation today. That's dav5k.boston.
I love when we've got pieces like this back to back. So the first one from Bloomberg, in fact. War knocks global economy with dual shock to growth and prices. Basically, the threat of stagflation in the global economy, paired with a piece from Jonathan Levine in Bloomberg. Are U.S. recessions going extinct? So he, by the way, concludes probably not. That's people do talk about this phenomenon. I've been asked questions about it because it has been a while, but.
It was a long way of saying that there's
no.
still risk to the market going down.
So let's talk about the first piece, though, and talk about, going into 2026, there were some pre-existing threats to the U.S. I want to focus on the U.S. economy. I know this is about the global economy. I think those threats are a little bit more obvious to, Singapore, for instance, doesn't have much of an economy if it can't get its hand on bunker fuel to fuel ships that go all over the world. Pakistan can't have much of an economy if they can't run their electric grid. That's a pretty obvious threat. Inflation isn't really a problem there. It might be, but for right now, if you can't power your grid, you have bigger problems than inflation. Here in the United States, we were facing an economy, well, I think just defining what we were looking at. We had GDP that was running weaker than anticipated. Initial thoughts were that we were going to be running in the high 2s, low 3s, and it came in a fair bit lower than expected once we got the readings on it for 2025. Employment in the United States, the unemployment rate had been heading up slightly, but that wasn't really the concerning piece about the labor market. The concerning piece about the labor market was that the pace of hiring had just been sequentially going down.
Yeah.
It had been slowing to a halt, to Paul's point. We net in 2025, I think, added 115,000 jobs to the U.S. labor market.
And we were cranking out 225,000 a month back in the peak of 21 and 22.
Yeah. I mean, in 2024, I think there were 1.5 million jobs added. In 2023, 2.5 million. So there was a slowdown occurring there in the labor market. And, there are a number of theories as to why that could be happening. It might be all immigration related. It could be related to improvements in AI and companies being hesitant to hire because of that. It could be a number of other factors around private credit worries or worries about how any number of things are going to disrupt trade, is going to disrupt the economy. So there was, notwithstanding a concern about growth going into 2026, which is why the Fed lowered interest rates at the end of second half of 2025, even with a Fed president who seems to disagree with a lot of things that President Trump has to say about the economy, they still lowered interest rates in the second half of 2025. You now pair that with this price shock in Iran because of the events in Iran. And it's easy to get to a point where you talk about stagflation. And when we talk about stagflation, most people think about the 1970s, but I'll point out that we've dealt with short periods of stagflation here in the U.S. If anybody remembers 2022, it's only a few years ago. I hope all of you listening remember 2022. The state of the economy was pretty visibly problematic.
Mm-hmm.
You did have a labor market that continued growing. So that was the exception to the rule, is the labor market was actually showing signs that it was okay, which is probably the only reason we didn't get a recession call for 2022. But GDP declined for 2 straight quarters. You had earnings coming down, and you had inflation running the worst numbers that you had seen since the 1974, I think was the actual year. So by most accounts, that was, especially in the first half of 2022, a stagflationary environment. The concern right now is not a repeat of 2022, I don't think.
Right.
I think it's very difficult in my mind to get to a point where inflation runs 9%. I think the concern that I would have about this moment in time is, do we run the risk of the multitude of shocks that we saw in the 1970s repeating themselves over and over again here for the mid-2020s, right? We've had the 2022 inflation shock. We then had a labor market that came down. We had a business decision freeze and hiring freeze due to threat of tariffs that kind of paused all productive hiring and firing for a good 6 to 9 months as businesses navigated it. And now we are having what could result in a supply chain shock. We are not there yet.
No.
But we what the events right now, the threat to the United States, everybody likes to talk about gas prices. That to me is not the biggest threat from all of this. Like, frankly, if gas prices sit at $4 to $5 a gallon for a year, nobody's going to be happy, but that probably in and of itself doesn't land you in a recession. What could land you in a recession and a stagflationary environment would be prices for fertilizer and everything else increasing at a pretty substantial and unpredictable pace, so that we're dealing with the type of environment that people remember in 2020 and 2021, where you would order something online and it might not ever show up because of the supply chain disruptions that we're getting. So that is, again, if you're worried about the real threat of this for the U.S. economy, that to me is what it could result in if this lasts. Again, this would be months. This is not, if it goes on another week, then I'm worried about Americans not being able to get their hands on grills and refrigerators again. But if it lasts a couple months, that is the type of disruption you're talking about.
The biggest distinction, and this point's been made previously, 2022 versus where we sit today, is the amount of consumer demand out there. 2022, everyone was sitting extremely flush in terms of the post-pandemic era. There have been trillions of dollars infused into the economy.
Nobody was paying student loans.
And consumers had the money to buy the grills, to buy patio furniture, etc. So that just exacerbated all the supply chain issues that we were dealing with because there was so much demand for it. From all that we can see now in terms of the state of the consumer, we've talked about this bifurcated consumer that we've had over the last year and a half or so, where the wealthy income earners have been spending, but the lower income earners have not been spending and have been much more discerning about their purchases. So if you were to see this environment where prices increase, I would imagine I would push back a little bit lesser of a concern on the stagflation front, because I just don't know if we'd have the requisite demand to continue to push prices up, because I feel like the appetite for consumption would drop more so now than it was in 22, just because the consumer is in a different place. But some of the issues you're speaking to are more business driven and perhaps the consumer impact, like fertilizer, those are things that we need, and they're not luxury items like patio furniture or grills. So perhaps it would be harder to avoid that.
Let's take a quick break. When we return, Wall Street Watch full market update coming up next.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @TFE Show. Breaking business news is always first, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative Lori Trahan are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women,
taking the lives of 1 in 3.
That's more than all forms of cancer combined.
For too long, heart disease and stroke have taken the lives of the women we love.
But we're not giving up, because we have something better,
stronger, more powerful.
We have each other.
When we come together and go red,
the more power we have against our greatest health threat.
Visit goredforwomen.org today to learn more.
Protecting your home at the life estate can be problematic if you don't understand the rules. Cushing & Dolan's new guide called Calculating the Consequences of Life Estates can help you learn about how this strategy works and what to consider. Call Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699 and get your guide today. Or request it online at legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hi, I'm Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and soldiers' homes and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for both single veterans and those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
When a heart stops, the clock starts. You are the first responder until help arrives. In that moment, 4 minutes equals brain damage. 6 minutes equals too late in an emergency. The first responder is you. We need you. Will you be ready? Learn CPR. Visit heart.org/nation. That's heart.org/nation.
This is Mike Armstrong and Paul Lane from the Armstrong Advisory Group out with our brand new guide for the month of March about divorce and your financial plan. And certainly while it's not the path that anybody hopes to go down with their marriage, many marriages do result in this, and it results in a full reformatting of their financial scenario. Now, Paul, understanding these different assets that ultimately need to get divided in the event of a divorce gets pretty complicated. So let's start with the basics when you're thinking about retirement assets versus the home versus, say, a checking account. How does one need to be thinking about these different buckets of money when they're talking about the equitable division of assets in a divorce?
Yeah, Mike, first you have to divide out those different assets into those buckets you were alluding to before: pre-tax retirement savings, real estate, as well as after-tax investment accounts. And what you have to understand is with the pre-tax retirement savings accounts, there are taxes and potentially penalties associated with those. So those assets are not equal to perhaps some money in a bank account, for example, that is much easier to access and withdraw. Same thing with real estate. Equity might be significant in a property, but there are a lot of carrying costs and expenses associated with that ownership.
Yeah, these things are complicated, and unfortunately, what it can lead to if you're not prepared for it is a division of assets that doesn't work out in your favor once you consider the after-tax implications of that division. If you have questions that you're facing as you head towards this life move, get your copy of our new guide, Divorce and Your Financial Plan. It's available by calling us at 800-393-4001. Again, it's the free guide, Divorce and Your Financial Plan, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Time now for Wall Street Watch, tracking the stocks, the data, and the headlines driving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Well, markets are giving back gains from yesterday's rebound, driven by President Trump's social media posts about the U.S. and Iran having productive talks. However, sentiment waned after Iran denied discussions. Right now, the Dow is down by 74 points, over 0.1%. S&P 500 down about 0.33%. NASDAQ down nearly 0.8%, or 171 points. Russell 2000 down over 0.5%. 10-year Treasury yield up 4 basis points at 4.382%. And oil up 4% higher, trading just below $92 a barrel. Tesla reported its first monthly sales increase in Europe in more than a year, where it faces strong competition from Chinese EV maker BYD. Tesla stock today is up by 1%. Meanwhile, the Financial Times reported that Japan's second largest lender, Sumitomo Mitsui Financial Group, is working on plans for a possible takeover of investment bank Jefferies. Jefferies stock is rising nearly 2%. Elsewhere, Apollo Global Management stock falling nearly 5% after a filing with the SEC revealed the asset management company will limit withdrawals from its flagship private credit fund to less than half of requests. Estee Lauder shares sinking over 9% after the Wall Street Journal reported the beauty giant is in talks to acquire Spanish perfume maker Puig Brands, and video game retailer GameStop will report earnings after today's closing bell. I'm Tucker Silva, and that is Wall Street Watch.
Massachusetts home sales are down more than 10% to start the year, and I think we can file this under interesting but probably not relevant yet. So my take on this would be concerning if this lasts through midway this year, because, look, interest rates are a good 0.75% lower than they were during the last spring home sales season. But guess what? It is midway through March. And basically for January and February, nobody was buying homes because we were all snowed into our homes. So you weren't hiring somebody to clean out your home. You couldn't hire anybody to put a pod in front of your house because there was, 8 feet of snow. And so the idea that home sales are down, unsurprising to me. And then, oh, by the way, the snow finally melted and we invaded Iran and interest rates shot up. So all of those lead me to believe that, hey, this would be a normal course of action for fewer home sales to be occurring because people are suddenly worried about the rate they're going to pay. They couldn't go and tour a home. They couldn't get their home ready for sale. We will have to see post I would say right through home sales through July 4th to me are the interesting barometer for how we stack up compared to last year. And I don't think anything about home sales being down for the first couple of months indicate that we won't see an uptick in the second quarter of the year. So I would say pump the brakes on this. This might not be relevant yet.
No, but the two areas of concern that I would have is the homes that were sold were at a 2.6% higher price than they were last year. So the median price of homes sold at the end of February 2025 jumped to $595,000 from $580,000 the year before. And then also on the building side of things, we saw new permits for private housing units in 2025 from preliminary data from the U.S. Census Bureau that would be down 15.6% from where they were in terms of units authorized in 24. So prices on the median side going up. Granted, I get it, January and February aren't the most robust months of home sales, and lesser homes built through 25 versus 24. Those dynamics are frustrating. It's just the continuing trend of housing in Massachusetts not being affordable.
If you want further bad news on that affordability side, according to Mortgage News Daily, the average 30-year fixed rate mortgage now going for 6.49% as of yesterday. And where do we have bond rates going today? Bond yields moving up again pretty significantly today, so I expect that to be over 6.5 when we measure it tomorrow. That compares to this time last year, where rates were running around 6.75%. So, the mortgage situation that everyone was banking on getting some help from this year is not materializing in time for the Northeast spring housing market. But don't worry, we've got the perfect ballot initiative to fix all of the affordability concerns coming to the state of Massachusetts, Paul, that you too will get to vote on if you're a resident of Massachusetts, which is rent control. Coming on down. There's also a tax cut proposal that we'll preview here, but the rent control is the one that we've been talking a fair bit about. They want to put rent control filed by the Homes for All Massachusetts, which is not what will happen. But the initiative would limit annual rent hikes to the rate of inflation as measured by the CPI with a cap of 5%. So if inflation's running 9, too bad. You get 5. That's all you can do. Landlords would be barred from raising rents again if a tenant leaves during the year. Owner-occupied buildings with 4 or fewer units would be exempt. And it would apply to new buildings new buildings would also be exempt during their first 10 years after being built. So if you couldn't detect it, that was sarcasm. I think this would do only bad things for affordability in Massachusetts because, as Paul just mentioned, building permits are down. Builders are not looking to, increase the pace of construction. And why would I if building a new apartment complex would result in me being subject to rent control 10 years after I finish construction? This makes no sense.
There are case studies out here on this. They tried to do this in St. Paul, Minnesota back in 2021 where the property values fell. The losses were driven by this idea that if you own a building, you can't get higher as expected future rents from this type of proposal, and it has ripple effects. And the problem with this, Mike, is there's such a big disconnect between what a voter would just see on the piece of paper versus the true economic impact. Oh, lower rents, rent control, that sounds good for the consumers, but ultimately it has the adverse effect. It has the reverse effect of that, and I don't think the wording, it has to be very clear on a ballot initiative. I don't know if you can get there to really explain that, hey, property values are going to drive down, less tax revenue in the area. There's going to be all these ripple effects that are just going to make things worse, and it's frustrating.
I mean, it's going to lead to obvious circumstances. Price controls lead to shortages, so will there be demand for rent-controlled units? Absolutely. There will be because they're going to be charging below market rent. Likewise, will you be able to get the landlord in that building to do anything to your improvements? Oh, there's a hole in the wall? Yeah, too bad. Live with it. Because guess what? I can't raise rent if I put in a new appliance or do anything, so forget it. I'm not going to respond to your calls. I'm not going to do anything there. Likewise, again, just in our interest of driving wealthy residents out of the Commonwealth, let's say I own 20 properties and I'm going to be subject to new rent control. I'm already paying a 9% millionaire's tax because guess what? If I own 20 rental units, I'm probably making some dough. and now I'm going to be subject to this new rent control. You know what? I'm going to put my buildings up for sale. I'm going to 1031 exchange all of it because, by the way, you can, if you're not familiar, you can sell a piece of real estate and completely avoid any capital gains tax or Massachusetts millionaires tax by taking advantage of a section of the IRS code called 1031 exchange, where you just take the proceeds and buy another property somewhere else, which if you own 20 units, you're probably familiar with how to do that, and avoid the Massachusetts millionaires tax and move out of the state and, just take my capital elsewhere.
Putting way more inventory on the markets, thus driving market value down of real estate, which thus drives down tax revenue in the area.
Yeah. So, we'll all get to vote on it later this fall. Maybe, again, the Massachusetts population is among the most educated in the country. I'm going to hold out hope that they do some reading on how rent control affects real estate markets across the country, but...
This was pushed back previously, right, within Massachusetts years prior?
Yeah, in years prior, we outlawed rent control, and, like with anything else, frankly, like with tariffs, we seem to want to test dumb ideas every 30, 40, 50 years or so and just see how they work out for us, and I suspect that we will be doing the same here. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, are U.S. recessions going extinct? That's so 2003. We'll be asking that question next on the Financial Exchange.
Markets move fast. Follow the Financial Exchange live on X so you never miss a story. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
When going through a divorce, understanding the rules around your finances can make a real difference. This is Chuck Zada from the Armstrong Advisory Group. State law plays a major role in how assets are divided, whether that means a strict split or a distribution based on what the court considers fair. Health insurance and Social Security benefits are other considerations that you'll need to prepare for. You may have been covered under a spouse's plan and now need to find one of your own, and Social Security may offer benefits based on your former spouse's record. Our new guide, Divorce in Your Financial Plan, will walk you through these issues and more to help you make informed decisions that may affect your future. Call 800-393-4001 to request your free copy. That's 800-393-4001 or request the guide online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Protecting your home at the life estate can be problematic if you don't understand the rules. Cushing & Dolan's new guide called Calculating the Consequences of Life Estates can help you learn about how this strategy works and what to consider. Call Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699 and get your guide today. Or request it online at LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hi, I'm Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and soldiers' homes and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for both single veterans and those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Sometimes we know what's next. Other times, it's impossible to know. Life can change in an instant. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops. Knowing CPR gives you the ability to act and takes you from bystander to lifesaver. CPR is a life-saving skill. Join the nation of lifesavers today by learning CPR at heart.org/nation. National support for CPR education provided by Elevance Health Foundation.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative Ayanna Pressley are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
From markets to money to business and financial news, watch The Financial Exchange every day on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button and keep up to date on the market news you need to know. This is The Financial Exchange.
Jonathan Levine of Bloomberg asks, are U.S. recessions going extinct? Is a long-winded way of saying almost definitely not. But here's what he brings up. And I was having this exact conversation with a investor in their 50s yesterday who really, just barely started investing around 2010. And so for that person's experience who has spent the last 16 years investing and only the last 16 years investing, there isn't a lot of evidence of prolonged recessionary environments.
Yeah.
Just plain and simple, right? I mean, this person worked in education, so they had a pretty stable job at that point in time. They didn't have a lot of saved assets, so, the financial crisis was real. They saw the families or the kids they care for going through it, but it was not a situation where it dramatically affected them. And since then, they've only seen markets go straight upwards. And so I've heard this echoed of, hey, I might think here's the statement I've heard from people who are, worried about the long-term outlook of the U.S. government and our deficits. It's been, hey, we seem to have gotten a lot better at addressing big economic downturns. The Fed just immediately steps in, floods the system with cash, rescues companies that need to be rescued. Congress recognizes that they need to pass bills like TARP. And worst case scenario, it results in some painful inflation at the end of the day, but we avoid some of the worst outcomes from recessions, like we saw during the Great Recession, or God forbid, like we saw during the Great Depression. And I'll acknowledge for a moment that we may have better safety social nets in place today compared to 2008 and compared to the 1930s. I was listening to an interview with Ken Burns, the history guy, the other day, and he was asked about the Great Depression during the Great Recession, and his point was, well, during the Great Depression, we closed all the zoos, slaughtered the animals, and distributed the meat to the poor. So, it doesn't feel like we're quite in the same environment. And he makes a good point that, yeah, none of these events directly repeat themselves. But I would have a very tough time convincing myself or anybody else that means that we're not going to have a prolonged market downturn ever again in the future, alongside a very difficult time for the economy.
No, I'm right with you. It's just naive to just think that we can just skate along, that we fix the problem. And what's outlined in this piece in Bloomberg is back in 2003, there was a University of Chicago economist, Robert Lucas, who declared that we had succeeded and accomplished our goal of curbing the risk to a macroeconomic disaster. And then, shortly thereafter, we had one. Ultimately, you mentioned the Federal Reserve and the efforts taken by the government to backstop the U.S. economy in a lot of different situations. I've always wondered aloud, and I don't know if this is an issue tomorrow, but at some point in time, they're not going to be able to successfully backstop the U.S. economy. We've talked a lot on this program about how much debt the country has. At some point, it becomes problematic where there is the inability to just print your way out of it.
Even if you don't buy the debt piece being the problem, because there are plenty, even in economic circles, who don't look at the deficit as the real problem here. If the U.S. economy were to dive into a bad recession right now, and the Fed were to take action, not necessarily because of the deficit, there would be an enormous inflationary risk to it.
Yep. Right.
So, even if you do buy that, the Fed is not going to let us go through a bad economic moment like we did in 2008 ever again, which I would debate, then you're going to have to buy into the idea that, recession wasn't as bad, but we ended up dealing with some of the worst inflation that we've once again seen in decades. And so I again go back to, will we ever see an exact repeat of 2008 or 2001 or 1939? No, likely not. But we'll see echoes of all of them in the next financial crisis, and there will always be another recession. There will always be another market downturn caused by something that we don't fully understand today.
Many families consider using a life estate as part of their planning, but without a clear understanding, it can lead to unintended consequences. Cushing & Dolan have a new guide called Calculating the Consequences of Life Estates that explains what to watch for and how to think through your options before making any decisions. Key rules to be aware of include the 5-year Medicaid look-back, where the state reviews financial transactions over the prior 5 years, and certain transfers, like giving away property or assets, can create a period where benefits are delayed. Call Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699 to request your free guide today. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request a guide from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
The financial media seems to be finally picking up on the severity of the private credit situation, and not a day goes by now, even with the conflict in Iran, that we don't see some new headline about the private credit industry. This one was really interesting to me, which is the conflicts that big banks seem to have with private credit. So in one side of their business, they are sometimes lending money directly to private credit firms. They're making a bunch of fees when those private credit or private equity firms list their funds or their companies on public markets. So these are big customers of theirs. At the same time, they have investment managers and analysts whose job is to spot risk in the markets and call it out, and supposed to have these firewalls, these Chinese walls between the two, but not always does it go quite as well. And here is an example. So along with JP Morgan, Bank of America created a strategy for some of their clients to bet against stocks with exposure to private credit. So it was like, hey, we've developed this whole strategy, and here's how we're going to outline it. Quickly, the bank retracted it and apologized for the idea, with their research analysts later attributing the continuing downturn to, quote, media attention. So here's how to read that if you're not sure how to read that. A bunch of people at Bank of America thought that there would be a financial product that they could sell to customers that would allow them to target and short and sell companies with exposure to private credit. And somebody higher up in the bank said, don't do that. That's going to piss off our private credit clients.
Yeah.
That's problematic.
It is. It is.
So I'm going to make this for a moment about, the investing industry for a moment here. When you deal with a giant financial institution as an individual investor, it is difficult to comprehend all of the conflicts that exist within those giant financial organizations. But boy, do they exist. And this one is, again, I don't necessarily think that a financial product that's designed to allow people to, bet against certain types of stocks is necessarily a good idea for most investors. But the mere fact that somebody at Bank of America rolled it out and then was forced to kill it based on the customer base, I think is a perfect example of the problems you get with these giant financial institutions when they're trying to act in the best interest of some of their customers.
Same thing with the housing market, right? Back in 2008, they created, derivative instruments to bet against it too, which would go against the whole foundation of a lot of their businesses. So one thing is always true, Mike. Wall Street's always willing to make a buck.
Always willing to make a buck, and always willing to favor that big customer, sometimes over the smaller ones. Market staging a rebound here. We had the S&P briefly flash positive. It's back in the red at the moment, but we'll have a lot more, including a full recap for you on the second hour of the Financial Exchange.
Life estates are sometimes used to protect your home as part of your future, but it's important to understand how they really work before making any changes to your estate plan. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law and taxation. Their new guide, called Calculating the Consequences of Life Estates, explains the pros and cons and why careful planning is so critical. A life estate can allow you to remain in your home while transferring future ownership. But decisions like putting the property in your children's names versus using a trust can have very different consequences when it comes to taxes, control, and protection from creditors. Before you sign any deed or transfer property, be sure you understand your options. Call Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699 and ask for your free guide today. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Have you saved enough for retirement? This is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. The advisors at our firm have 150 years of combined experience in the financial services sector, and they all work together to help you develop a unique financial plan that offers investment management, financial planning, tax strategies, and retirement planning. It's our goal to help you position your assets and give you peace of mind. Having a solid retirement strategy and investment plan becomes more important as you age, so visit us today at armstrongadvisory.com and sign up for a free, no-obligation planning session. Just click the Get Started button at the top right corner of the homepage, and you can select the day and time that works best for you. Go to armstrongadvisory.com and let us develop a plan to help you secure your financial future. Again, that's armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative William Keating are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275CM FM, Concord, Boston. The Money Matters Radio Network.
When a heart stops, the clock starts. You are the first responder until help arrives. In that moment, 4 minutes equals brain damage. 6 minutes equals too late in an emergency. The first responder is you. We need you. Will you be ready? Learn CPR. Visit heart.org/nation. That's heart.org/nation.
Divorce isn't just a legal process. It's a financial reset. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and our new guide, Divorce and Your Financial Plan, walks you through how to take inventory of your assets, avoid common mistakes when splitting accounts, update beneficiaries, and start building a plan that works for your next chapter. Divorce is complicated enough without all of its financial ramifications. The decisions you make now can have lasting consequences for your future, because after a divorce, it's not just about who gets what. It's about making sure your financial life is truly separated and set up to support your goals going forward. Call the Armstrong Advisory Group right now at 800-393-4001 and get your free guide, Divorce and Your Financial Plan. That's 800-393-4001 or request the guide online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Sometimes we know what's next. Other times, it's impossible to know. Life can change in an instant. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops. Knowing CPR gives you the ability to act and takes you from bystander to lifesaver. CPR is a life-saving skill. Join the nation of lifesavers today by learning CPR at heart.org/nation. National support for CPR education provided by Elevance Health Foundation.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange Quick Tip of the Day. And today, we're talking about the use of life estates and your primary residence. Todd, does the 5-year waiting period for Medicaid eligibility apply to the creation of a life estate?
Well, the short answer is yes, it does. But let me explain why it does. So, first of all, when you create a life estate, again, the general way people do it is they tend to put the remainder interest of the property in the hands of children. I don't like it that way, but that's how they do it, when you could have the remainder interest with the trust. But the moment you put the child's name on the deed and you reserve the right to live there is a completed gift for gift tax purposes. No one thinks of that, but now you technically need to file a gift tax return. And it's that creation of the gift, it's that transfer of that remainder interest in the property to the child for less than fair market value that triggers the disqualification period for Medicaid. So that's why you have to wait 5 years after you create this life estate arrangement in order for the house to be protected from the nursing home. It's very hard to avoid the 5-year waiting period, folks. There's really not too many ways around it.
Learn how you can avoid probate, eliminate estate taxes, keep your money in your family, and protect your assets from the nursing home. Request this brand new guide from Cushing & Dolan. It's called Calculating the Consequences of a Life Estate. You can get it by calling 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can simply request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Paul Lane. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Paul Lane.
Good morning and welcome back to the Financial Exchange. As we head into the 11 o'clock hour of the program, we've got markets marking a turnaround here compared to where they opened. The S&P 500, I think, opened down around 0.75%. We're now down only 0.1%. Dow Jones Industrial Average in positive territory. NASDAQ still off about 0.5%. When we take a look at the bond market, you do have the 10-year yield moving up again to 4.378%. And mortgage rates, as I mentioned during the last segment of the show, up over or around 6.5%. I suspect they will be over 6.5% according to Mortgage News Daily tomorrow when we get the read on things. Taking a look at oil markets, likely the cause for some of the bounce in the 10-year. You've got oil markets in West Texas crude up about 3%, $2.68 a barrel to $90.81. And so when we move over and take a look at gas prices here, national average for a gallon of gas now sitting just shy of $4 per gallon, $3.98. Paul, anything else catching your eyes in terms of markets so far this morning? Obviously, volatility is the name of the game right now when it comes to these day-to-day bounces.
No, nothing.
I think the one point that I'll make on volatility is while we have seen a fair bit of day-to-day and intraday swings, keep in mind right now that equity markets are 5% or so off of the highs that they reached before the war. That is tremendously important context to keep in mind here, because I keep getting questions like, where's the buying opportunity? Buy the dip.
Yeah.
And not to say that opportunity didn't already present itself. It may. We may have already bottomed. This war could wrap up and equity markets could rally on some new exciting AI news. But we are seeing a number of things in the Middle East that we have literally never seen. The blockage of the Strait of Hormuz is the big one, but a lot of things that have not been seen in any war in the Middle East before. And the fact that the U.S. equity markets remain around 5% or 7% off their all-time highs is somewhat surprising to me. And I understand why. There's a lot of buy the dip mentality. There's a lot of the mentality here that President Trump's going to pivot if things get too bad, and I fully understand where that comes from. But equity markets, again, in one of the biggest energy crises we've seen in decades, are off about 5%, and I find that very, very interesting at this point in time.
Absolutely.
The U.S. worker struggling in this job market. We've got a pair of articles here, one a Gallup poll and two a piece from the New York Times in a pretty grim job market. And I'm really trying to change my ways on this, because I keep criticizing these pieces that are describing the job market as grim, given the job market that I entered into and many of us entered into in the early 2010s decade or late 2000s decade. But they bring up a bunch of valid points here about the state of the labor market. How would you describe the labor market as you see it today, Paul?
Right now, we've been in this sort of no hire, no fire labor market environment where companies are really trying to focus internally on how can we do more with our existing headcount and not bring on more employees? How do we use new technologies to keep our headcount level, or perhaps in some instances lessen our headcount to be more productive? And as a result of that, where you're seeing particular areas of the labor market hit, the unemployment rate for college graduates, like Mike was alluding to earlier, soared to 5.6% at the end of last year. Those are ages between 22 and 27. That is sharply outpacing where we have overall U.S. employment sitting around 4.2% at that time. And then in this Gallup poll, this talks about, I always have some skepticism with these polls as to how employees feel about the labor market, but the Gallup poll tries to look at just the overall job market pessimism or optimism at a given point in time.
I find this to be somewhat relevant because oftentimes we'll cite these polls and there's no historical context for them. Like they interviewed a bunch of people, this is how they feel, but we don't know how they felt 5 years ago.
Right.
And so like some of these things we've just thrown out, right? The Michigan's consumer sentiment survey, we talk about it, but it's been reflecting terrible numbers for years now that haven't really flipped a whole lot. This has flipped a lot. The survey responses that Gallup got, I'll highlight one of them. In the fourth quarter of 2025, 28% of U.S. employees said now is a, quote, good time to find a quality job, 72% saying it's a bad time. In mid-2022, 70% of workers were saying it's a good time. That is a complete and utter reversal. Now, they should have been. 2022 was a great time to find a job. There were bonuses. There were all sorts of things.
Yeah,
in
I mean,
places.
we had quits rates that we hadn't seen in 50 or 60 years in a labor market that was trying to reset from a
100%
starting of the economy.
But at least, unlike the Michigan Sentiment Survey, which is basically telling you that today the economy is just as bad as it was in 2022, which is obvious hogwash. This actually shows you, like, oh yeah, people are perceiving that, yeah, the labor market has gotten worse, and they're far less optimistic about it today than they were a few years ago.
Noted, but I guess I don't even need this to tell you that, just because if you look at the unemployment rate, the hiring rate, the quits rate, like all three of those statistics will back that up too. The one piece I will say in here, an area that I could sympathize with, I talked about the college graduates. That's an area where I do get the feedback that I can see why employers wouldn't want to bring on those associates, that there is a huge amount of hesitation there. Federal workers, too, with everything that we've been dealing with TSA and all those issues, and you look at just a swath of positions on the government level or even educators on the municipal level, I can understand that the frustration that they have where their wage increases, I don't believe, have been commensurate with the inflation that we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years. So while the Gallup poll, it reflects that there is a weakening sentiment from those federal and state workers, I get that. But in general, this is something that can be reflected in economic data. I guess it's another point that's helpful to have.
Yeah, I think the other obvious point here is that college-educated and younger workers are the most pessimistic.
Yep.
Yeah, if you work in one of those clerical type jobs, if you work in a investment banking role, I can see why you're pessimistic about the future. And if you don't have a job right now, I also see why you're pessimistic given what has happened with the job openings, given what's been happening from what I hear at job fairs where fewer employers are showing up to look to hire. Like, there's a number of factors here that I do comprehend why that demo in particular would be concerned. On the other hand, if you are a Gen Xer, all of the really qualified baby boomers are starting to retire. All of that institutional knowledge is getting lost. You are concerned about ageism, but you're finding yourself in a position where, hey, I've got decades of experience. All of the older folks in my company are starting to peel off here. I feel more needed now than I ever have in my career. So it is, again, I'm sensing some diverging feelings about all of this. Overall, I think beyond all of this, the threat that people are most concerned about seems to be artificial intelligence for at least the white collar worker. Is, okay, how do I skill up my knowledge? How do I make sure that I'm a valuable resource to my employer so that I am not just on the chopping block for the next time they need to make their quarterly earnings look good? So I do comprehend that concern. And frankly, people are right to be concerned. The pace of hiring has dropped off a ledge compared to where we were over the last 3 years. And if you don't have a job right now, it's going to be increasingly difficult to find one.
Definitely.
That doesn't mean it's a worse job market than 2010 or 2009 or 2011. It's a different job market, and it's going to represent its own unique challenges. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're playing a little bit of trivia here next on the Financial Exchange.
From breaking news to market analysis, follow the Financial Exchange Show on X and watch the show live every day. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
As you navigate life after divorce, planning for your family's future becomes even more important. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. From everyday expenses to thinking about how college will be funded, it's important to have a clear plan for how all of your upcoming costs will be handled over time. Divorce also means adjusting to a new financial reality, where one household becomes two and your budget, saving strategy, and long-term goals may need to be reevaluated. Our new guide is called Divorce and Your Financial Plan, and it discusses ways to build a financial strategy that supports your family's next chapter. You can get your free guide today by calling 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001, or you can request the guide online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Life estates are sometimes used to protect your home as part of your future, but it's important to understand how they really work before making any changes to your estate plan. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law and taxation. Their new guide, called Calculating the Consequences of Life Estates, explains the pros and cons and why careful planning is so critical. A life estate can allow you to remain in your home while transferring future ownership. But decisions like putting the property in your children's names versus using a trust can have very different consequences when it comes to taxes, control, and protection from creditors. Before you sign any deed or transfer property, be sure you understand your options. Call Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699 and ask for your free guide today. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
It happens all over Massachusetts,
Can you tie my shoes?
in every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Here at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we are committed to all students not only attending, but succeeding at school. Your presence is powerful. Share why you attend at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative Stephen Lynch are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Hear the Financial Exchange every day from 11 to noon on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. Keep it here for the latest business and financial news and the trends on Wall Street. The Financial Exchange is now live on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
All right, time for trivia here on the Financial Exchange. And today is Steve Ballmer's 70th birthday. Yeah, that's right, Steve.
The key to success is developers.
All right. Okay, very good. All right, Steve, relax, dude.
Developers,
all right. Okay, Steve, it's your birthday. Happy birthday. We get it. All right, jeez. The former Microsoft CEO handed the reins to Satya Nadella when he left Microsoft back in 2014. After leaving Microsoft, Ballmer bought a struggling NBA franchise for $2 billion. So our trivia question today, which NBA team does Steve Ballmer own? Once again, which NBA team does Steve Ballmer own? Be the seventh person today to text us at 617-362-1385 with the correct answer, along with the keyword trivia, and you win a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. Once again, the seventh correct response to text us to the number 617-362-1385 with the correct answer, along with the keyword trivia, will win that t-shirt. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
He pays his players pretty well on that
Does he?
team, I've heard.
Yeah.
There's Allegedly.
America's chief financial officers are saying AI is coming for administrative jobs. And yeah, it is.
Yep.
If you work in data entry, if you work in compiling slide decks, if you work
Customer
in
service, I was hired right out of college to do
at
a call center.
Customer service, yeah, I guess so too.
Heck
probably, you know,
to reset a password. You
Yeah.
can't have an AI agent
Right.
figure that out.
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
I mean, I did it with style and Flash, but I think it can
Pizzazz.
be replaced. I think it can
had
be
a pocket
replaced.
square and everything over the phone. But yes, I do agree. I think CFOs are correct that AI is coming pretty quickly for administrative jobs. I don't know about all the other ones. I can see a few different paths now that I think we could go down, and both of which have concerning possible ends with not ends, but outcomes in the short term with AI. The pace at which AI has improved upon itself has been pretty darn impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Like, anybody that was using these things 2 years ago, like, do you remember asking it to do some basic math? Or, you know, asking about a famous person, and it would just get the math wrong and make stuff up about the famous person, or even not so famous person. Like if I did an AI query of myself back a few years ago, it would just make a whole bunch of stuff up about me that didn't, you know, it didn't exist. And so the pace at which this stuff has advanced to, hey, it can barely do math, to, yeah, it can code an entire website and get 95% of it right and test it and do all this stuff. Very, very impressive how dramatically it has improved. And if it continues to do so, it is going to replace a bunch of jobs. It is going to make a bunch of companies irrelevant and may justify the stock prices that people are paying right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think there's a path where that could happen. If it does, I do worry about a bunch of jobs. And I worry that in the short to intermediate term, you could have a period of time where there's major labor market disruption, where a bunch of people globally, this is not just a U.S.-centric phenomenon, because there are countries that are far more reliant on tech help and customer service jobs than the United States is. But, you know, massive disruption possible if AI continues to improve at the pace it has been. I think that's a possible outcome. I don't think that's a long-term outcome, because eventually it corrects, right? Labor market goes kaput. People don't have money to spend on, and you can't keep investing in AI because, you know, all the products that you're developing, there's nobody to consume because nobody has any money, and it does correct. Eventually new jobs get created that are using the AI tools rather than being subject to them.
Workforces are retrained into other areas that they need assistance in.
But it might take a while.
Yeah.
If instead the AI development slows and, hey, the tools that we have today are no significantly better than the ones that we have 5 years from now, then instead I'm not all that much concerned about the labor market, to be quite honest. I see, yeah, some jobs get eliminated, other ones get created, just like happened during the dot-com bubble, just like happened with many other technologies throughout the course of history, and we probably don't go through this major labor market disruption that I'm worried about. In that case, though, I'm not sure the companies that are being bid through the roof right now are worth what people think they are.
Well, that would be really concerning from it would be a killer from a market perspective, because you're right. There's been so much investment in this space that if there were for any reason plateauing of technological advancement in this field over the course of the next 5 years and you don't get those significant improvements, then anybody who owns a 401k plan and is invested in large cap equities is going to take a significant hit, because those valuations are going to get really decimated.
I see these two paths, and maybe there's a middle path that I'm not fully familiar with. There probably is, but can't you see those two extreme paths? Either, yeah, this thing keeps taking off, and yes, those software companies that are under threat right now might be screwed, and they get a significant hit and people lose their jobs. It also could be that, yeah, the early advancements that were made were the big advancements, and the next advancements that get made just make it slightly more energy efficient or slightly faster to do the same computing, and we don't have these massive changes. I could see either one of those taking place. There's also, like you said, probably a middle path that we follow as well, but those are the ones that concern me, right? Like, either of those extremes are what concerns me about this moment.
Yeah, I tend to lead to the middling one, because usually when you look back at these new technologies, it's not just a straight yes or no failure or massive success. It usually is kind of blends of both, but we still see that's what makes it fun coming in every day.
Social Security does not allow most Americans to build wealth. It wasn't designed to, Mr. Fink. Larry Fink was not insulting Social Security as a whole. He was acknowledging that there has not been a single government program that was better at fighting poverty and preventing poverty in history. But I think he's, as most leaders out there, is acknowledging for a moment that we do have a Social Security trust fund that is on a path to financial calamity.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reality. I'm not overstating it. The trust fund goes bust somewhere in the next 6 to 9 years, depending on how everything plays out. And so he's as the CEO of the largest investment company in the world with his own self-interest is saying, why not take some money and put it into stocks that a company maybe like BlackRock could go and manage on behalf of the everyday Americans. And I'm comfortable saying two things. One, Larry Fink is completely self-interested by making these comments, and BlackRock would almost definitely stand to benefit substantially should the Social Security Administration start to invest trust fund assets into stocks, and it might not be a terrible idea.
It's not necessarily a terrible idea, but I don't know if that's not the biggest issue that needs to be resolved on the subject is the investment of the Social Security funds.
You can invest all of it in the stock market tomorrow, and the stock market can do extremely well, and you're still running out of money in the short term.
Yeah, my son has a small 529 account I've put together, but that sum that's in there is not going to be enough, even if dramatic returns are generated on it. There's just not a lot of money in there, and so the same problem here is you need to find ways to get more money into the fund. Let's start with that, and then we can talk about how to invest it more efficiently, because there's not enough money in there, even with tremendous investment returns, to solve this problem.
That is correct. We have markets here that have turned a corner. We've got the S&P up slightly on the day. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to get a full market recap along with the trivia winner next on the Financial Exchange.
Bringing the latest financial news straight to your radio every day. It's the Financial Exchange on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative Lori Trahan are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts has helped me and countless others adjust to civilian life through a variety of incredible programs. Through our local Veterans Assistance Program, we provide necessary services to veterans and their communities, such as food shopping, landscaping, and companionship, but we need your support. You can help by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
When going through a divorce, understanding the rules around your finances can make a real difference. This is Chuck Zada from the Armstrong Advisory Group. State law plays a major role in how assets are divided, whether that means a strict split or a distribution based on what the court considers fair. Health insurance and Social Security benefits are other considerations that you'll need to prepare for. You may have been covered under a spouse's plan and now need to find one of your own, and Social Security may offer benefits based on your former spouse's record. Our new guide, Divorce in Your Financial Plan, will walk you through these issues and more to help you make informed decisions that may affect your future. Call 800-393-4001 to request your free copy. That's 800-393-4001, or request the guide online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Life estates are sometimes used to protect your home as part of your future, but it's important to understand how they really work before making any changes to your estate plan. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law and taxation. Their new guide, called Calculating the Consequences of Life Estates, explains the pros and cons and why careful planning is so critical. A life estate can allow you to remain in your home while transferring future ownership, but decisions like putting the property in your children's names versus using a trust can have very different consequences when it comes to taxes, control, and protection from creditors. Before you sign any deed or transfer property, be sure you understand your options. Call Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699 and ask for your free guide today. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hey, this is Mike Armstrong and Paul Lane from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we're here to talk to you about our brand new guide, Divorce and Your Financial Plan. Paul, let's fast forward here a moment. You're through the divorce process, and now you are focused on this entirely new financial life. What do you view as the first step toward developing that new financial plan as you're thinking about a single individual versus a married couple?
What you really have to focus on, Mike, is the cash flows of your household. You've gone from presumably 2 incomes down to 1 income, or you're just living off of a lesser income. So understanding what your expenses are going to be going forward and matching that to the income that's coming in to your newly formed household is really important. That is something that is a area of significant focus, as well as health insurance coverage is another area that is of significant importance.
How are things like taxes and general expenses, how does that all change now if you're thinking about a single person versus a married couple?
Yeah, the tax brackets will change for a single filer versus a married couple, usually to the downside. Really, you're going to pay more in the way of taxes. So that's something that's really important to focus on, as well as many other areas of your financial plan.
Folks, we've got a brand new guide, again, from the Armstrong Advisory Group. It's free, and it's available at armstrongadvisory.com. You can request it there. It's Divorce and Your Financial Plan. There is a lot that goes into rebuilding your financial life after a life event as consequential as a legal divorce. If you have questions about how to navigate that process, this new free guide from the Armstrong Advisory Group is a great starting point. You can get it by requesting it again at armstrongadvisory.com or calling us at 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Time now for Wall Street Watch, tracking the stocks, the data, and the headlines driving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Seeing some choppy trading on Wall Street to this point where equity markets are clawing back earlier losses. This comes one day after President Trump's social media post saying the U.S. and Iran were having productive talks. Right now, the Dow now up about 0.25% or 125 points. S&P 500 is edging higher, is mostly flat. NASDAQ down 0.4% or 89 points lower. Russell 2000 up 0.5%. 10-year Treasury yield up 3 basis points at 4.37%. And crude oil up 3% higher today, trading right around $91 a barrel. Tesla reported its first monthly sales increase in Europe in more than a year, where it faces strong competition from Chinese EV maker BYD. Tesla stock is up about 1%. Meanwhile, the Financial Times reported that Japan's second largest lender, Sumitomo Mitsui Financial Group, is working on plans for a possible takeover of investment bank Jefferies. Jefferies stock is rising nearly 4% now. Elsewhere, Apollo Global Management stock falling about 1% after a filing with the SEC revealed the asset management company will limit withdrawals from its flagship private credit fund to less than half of requests. Estee Lauder shares sinking over 8% after the Wall Street Journal reported the beauty giant is in talks to acquire Spanish perfume maker Puig Brands, and video game retailer GameStop will report earnings after today's closing bell. I'm Tucker Silva, and that is Wall Street Watch. In the previous segment, we asked you the trivia question: which NBA team does Steve Ballmer own? That would be the LA Clippers. Peter in Sandwich, Mass is our winner today, taking home a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. Congrats to Peter. And we play trivia every day here on the Financial Exchange. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Paul, I have fantastic news for you.
I wish my mic was on. What's that, Mike?
Fantastic news coming your way, Paul. I have a strategy brought to us by Morningstar that over the last 36 years, had you implemented, would have allowed you to nearly triple the return of the S&P 500. And it only requires you to do something 10 times over those 36 years.
I'm all ears.
You just have to somehow miraculously miss the worst 10 days of the stock market over the last 10 years or 36 years, and you will nearly triple your return by managing to time when the downturn is coming with your crystal ball.
With that,
I mean, 10 days work over the course of 36 years is going to allow my portfolio to have grown by 4,400% over the last 36 years. That is pretty incredible. I don't see any problems with the
now
strategy.
I have two foolproof plans. One was my perfect bracket where Warren Buffett's going to pay me $1 billion.
Yep.
And now I got this.
Now you got this
I've
in your
got
back pocket,
two
too.
get-rich schemes going.
So people all are aware that, if you manage to just pick the good days and avoid the bad days, then you can really have a much better return on your portfolio. The problem is that both you and I and everybody else in this industry have been doing this for quite some time, and no one's ever met somebody that has successfully missed the down days while capturing the up days at the same time. And by the way, those giant downturns are often very close to the giant upswings that you have to take, that you have to participate in order to make this strategy work. So for an example, the third worst day in the last 36 years occurred on October 15th of 2008 when the S&P lost 9%. One of the best days during the last period of time was October 13th of the same year when it gained 11.6%. March 16th of 2020, worst single day, down nearly 12%. Lo and behold, 3 days prior, March 13th of 2020, up 9.25%. So let me put it bluntly, as the article itself actually does too. You could hypothetically beat the stock market substantially by ditching the worst days and participating in all the best ones. You won't. You will have no capability to do this because it is entirely unpredictable and nobody has the means of doing so. Paul, this is obviously, I've been speaking tongue-in-cheek. This is not going to be a successful portfolio or retirement strategy for anybody, but I think people do, and for good reason, fear markets like the ones that we are talking about here, where, yes, single days, the stock market can and has, as recently as 6 years ago, dropped by 12% in a single day. So where do we go for a more successful strategy to ensure that you have enough to retire down the road?
Mike, I got this question from a client yesterday where he had mentioned he was approaching retirement and wanted to talk about potentially de-risking his portfolio because of everything that was going on in the market.
And what did that mean to him?
And so what
did de-risking mean in his mind? Or was he asking you?
He was asking if we should be taking less risk. In the form that would take is selling off some of the stocks in his portfolio and putting more of them into bonds. And so what I immediately said before assessing anything regarding what is going on in markets on a given day was, client, we need to sit down and have a meeting that we're going to have this afternoon and focus on your situation, what retirement looks like for you, and what your needs are from this portfolio before we can assess whether or not we should take some risk off the table, because everyone's situation is different and everyone's income needs from their portfolio are going to differ. And so that, to me, is usually the basis of having the conversation first. I didn't blindly just say to him, you're right, you're retiring, it's time to de-risk the portfolio. There needs to be more context in the situation.
Yeah, so I look at it as two ways. One, if you are making investment decisions at all, and this isn't just changes to your allocation, it is what is the right allocation to have, there are some guardrails. In the financial plan, your assumed withdrawals, as you were talking about, should serve as the guardrails on the high end and the low end of what you can afford to do with your portfolio. And a good financial advisor will tell you that. Like, hey, these are the guardrails. This is the range at which you can accomplish your goals with a high degree of risk and likely a higher degree of return, and a lower degree of risk and a likely lower degree of return. Then the second step is to ask yourself, okay, Now let me put myself in the position of the retired person who's living entirely off of Social Security and this portfolio. How much can I stomach?
Mm-hmm.
So it's guardrails set up, and then, okay, where am I going to be most comfortable in one of these events? Because you know what? I can talk all about guardrails and financial history and the worst days and the best days in the stock market and long recessions, short recessions, market downturns. If I talk my face blue and you, the investor, still say, sounds good, I don't care, sell everything, then guess what? Nobody's done their job here, and you're still coming out with a worst outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the complexity of managing a portfolio, specifically in retirement, when your entire worldview begins to change. How much longer am I going to live? What if I don't have enough money to, support my kids, my grandchildren? What if my, wife gets sick? Am I going to have enough money? It becomes such a bigger focus when you are not day-to-day focusing on making that next dollar and saving for retirement, but instead ensuring that it lasts. If you don't have a framework for determining what's the right allocation for me, that's a red flag to me. Like maybe you do have a framework and you've thought it through, but if you haven't, if it's just been set it, forget it, and don't worry about it, I'm telling you that you need to have a better framework for how you are going to allocate your assets to make sure they last for you. If you want some help establishing that framework and working with a professional who does that for a living and can deliver or attempt to deliver some of that peace of mind to you, give the folks at Armstrong Advisory Group a call. The number's 800-393-4001. You can book a time for us to call you back at armstrongadvisory.com as well. But once again, that phone number, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
NASDAQ remains in negative territory here as we head towards the top of the hour, but S&P and Dow have flipped into positive territory here. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, bit of stack roulette coming up on the Financial Exchange.
Follow the Financial Exchange Show on Instagram and see what's driving the conversation about Wall Street and economic trends. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Protecting your home at the life estate can be problematic if you don't understand the rules. Cushing & Dolan's new guide called Calculating the Consequences of Life Estates can help you learn about how this strategy works and what to consider. Call Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699 and get your guide today. Or request it online at LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hi, I'm Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and soldiers' homes and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for both single veterans and those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
As you navigate life after divorce, planning for your family's future becomes even more important. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. From everyday expenses to thinking about how college will be funded, it's important to have a clear plan for how all of your upcoming costs will be handled over time. Divorce also means adjusting to a new financial reality, where one household becomes two and your budget, saving strategy, and long-term goals may need to be reevaluated. Our new guide is called Divorce in Your Financial Plan, and it discusses ways to build a financial strategy that supports your family's next chapter. You can get your free guide today by calling 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001, or you can request the guide online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Life estates are sometimes used to protect your home as part of your future, but it's important to understand how they really work before making any changes to your estate plan. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law and taxation. Their new guide, called Calculating the Consequences of Life Estates, explains the pros and cons and why careful planning is so critical. A life estate can allow you to remain in your home while transferring future ownership. But decisions like putting the property in your children's names versus using a trust can have very different consequences when it comes to taxes, control, and protection from creditors. Before you sign any deed or transfer property, be sure you understand your options. Call Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699 and ask for your free guide today. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The Financial Exchange Show podcast drops every day on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit that subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. You're listening to the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Hey, if you got questions for our new segment called the Money Matters Mailbag, here's what you got to do. Just give us a call at 339-399-4333 and leave your voicemail anytime, day or night, if you have a question for the show. Once again, that phone number to leave a voicemail for the Money Matters Mailbag, 339-399-4333, or shoot us an email to tfeshow@gmail.com, and we may use your question on the show.
3393-994-333. Got it.
Yeah,
stop confusing
It's a tough one.
It's a really good number.
It is a good number. You got all the same digits. I actually really like the number. I also like saying phone numbers in weird ways that nobody can understand. Sack roulette time, Paul. What do you have?
Pro Padel is raising $15 million as investors bet on the sport's U.S. growth. The reason I'm bringing this up, Padel, it is a hybrid of tennis and squash. I recently played it several times.
Tennis and squash.
Yes.
Okay.
So the way that it works is pickleball, I would say smallest court, tennis, bigger court. Size-wise, it's right in the middle between the two, a pickleball court and a tennis court. The Padel court is in the middle of those two. The reason that
Are you playing against a wall? Why squash?
The reason that it has squash elements to it is the back wall of it is a glass wall like you would see in squash, so that you can hit the ball, it can bounce, rebound off the wall, and you can still live play it at that point. The serving is underhand, similar to that of pickleball.
So you're surrounded by glass like a racket ball court.
Correct.
Seems too expensive.
Except for it's expensive.
Feels like it would be really
loud.
loud.
I was riding someone's coattails playing, but it is not. It is loud. This is not going to be this get it out of my neighborhood thing, because typically what you need to have is for a pretty sizable court, you need to have the glass backing. And around the New England area, it's going to be indoor if you want to be able to play it all year round. So you're talking about big warehouse structures in order to have these clubs. But I bring it up that it is the next sort of pickleball that has gotten a lot of popularity throughout the United States, or starting to trickle its way through the United States. It has raised money for its new league. There's supposedly a target for 20,000 courts, the U.S. Paddle Association said, over the course of the next, decade or so. Sorry, the next 4 or 5 years.
I'm probably wrong, but I'm going to say not going to happen. I
well,
think
my question is, who's going to make money? The pickleball investments, I remember Brady, all these guys are investing in. The same thing is in this piece here. There's Derek Jeter and Serena Williams investing in these leagues. Like,
here's
where
my
are
problem.
they going to get their money?
Baby
out of
boomers
this?
can't afford it, or a lot of baby boomers can't afford it in the same way they can pickleball. And they're going to hurt themselves in ways that they won't with pickleball.
Allegedly, it was better on the joints, but I don't know how that's possible because you definitely run a lot more than you in pickleball.
I've played squash before. I just face plant into the glass wall like every 30 seconds. Granted, I'm an uncoordinated moron, so like there's something to that. Anybody that's listening that knows me understands why I might be concerned about these people. But yeah, I don't see it taking. I mean, when pickleball was all the rage during COVID, I was playing it in my driveway. You can't do that with this sport. I don't know. I don't see it happening.
You cannot. No, you cannot. It's become really popular in Europe and South America, and apparently it's making its way over to the U.S., but we'll see. I don't think it will be as all-encompassing as the pickleball world. Like you said, a little harder to get on those courts.
Bad idea of the day. Home insurance crisis could use a public assist. So here's the story. Home insurance is getting pretty expensive. It's getting pretty expensive because where we build homes keep flooding and getting hit by hurricanes. And so insurance companies keep having to I forgot wildfires. They keep burning the homes down too. And so insurance companies are left there sitting saying, I just had to pay out hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm going to raise prices. The argument from the author here is, hey, if we just have a public federal option for a reinsurance company to cover U.S. home insurers, then it will make home insurance more affordable. Yes, it will, because the U.S. government will be subsidizing it and therefore absorbing the risk of all of the problematic building scenarios that we have where people keep building homes in pretty places where they burn down and get flooded every few years.
Well,
this is a dumb idea.
Well, they bailed out the housing market once. Why not do it again? No, I agree with you.
See the flood insurance program. We have a national flood insurance program. I am a customer of the flood insurance program. Do you know why?
They make you?
Because, well, yes, my mortgage broker, my mortgage company does force me to have a flood insurance policy. But the reason I have it is because it costs $1,200 a year to afford my beautiful home in Massachusetts because it's close to a river. That policy is only available. No insurance company out there would write it, but the National Flood Insurance Program has backed it up to say, yeah, you're barely in a floodplain, so go ahead. By the way, my backyard floods every summer. I am a flood risk, and the only reason that owning the home in that space is doable is because the national government says, hey, we're going to subsidize Mike Armstrong's flood insurance policy.
Mm-hmm.
This is a bad idea.
Very costly.
Go see Florida.
Yeah.
Florida has had to do this because they don't
State
want to
level.
drive people out of the state. Insurance companies were starting to leave the state, and they've had to step in and become the insurer of last resort. Now, it hasn't completely collapsed there. They have pushed through premium increases enough to allow for insurers to come back into the state. They've made some reforms to the lawsuits that were being filed in the state of Florida. But we do not want that on a national level. You want insurance companies. I hate them as much as everybody else does. Don't get me wrong. I recognize why insurance companies are unpopular. They reject claims all the time. They're difficult to deal with. They're your worst nightmare in your time of crisis. I agree with all of those things. Having the federal government be the insurance company instead is a stupid idea that is going to make matters worse. Don't do it.
Oh, absolutely.
Don't do it.
You need choices. You need different options out there. You can't just have one shop stop, particularly a federal government running a whole program. It can be a little scary for them to jump in those
then
waters.
What you're going to have is you're going to have politicians determining insurance rates.
Right.
Guess what? If you're a politician from Florida, you are going to push for the maps to be drawn in a way that benefits your constituents rather than the current scenario, which, again, not perfect, but the insurance companies are looking around there and saying, yeah, coastal home in New Hampshire, sorry, not interested in insuring because it's going to be underwater in 7 years. If you instead have politicians, elected officials saying, no, we get to be the ones to set all of this, then you are once again interfering in free markets. You are going to be subsidizing home insurance rates for the riskiest of borrowers, the riskiest of owners. And I guess, you're going to just disrupt free markets and cause an ineffective and deficit growing insurance problem for all of the United States.
If
you live in a non-flood prone area, you should hate this idea because you're going to subsidize it.
Oh my goodness, that would be awful. But I don't really know what the real solution is because these natural disasters aren't going anywhere in some of these coastal areas.
The real solution is our insurance across the board should cost a heck of a lot more than it does already.
Mike, are you crazy?
Yeah.
Don't let them hear you.
That's the reality, guys. You want to live on the coast in those beautiful areas where your home floods, your neighborhood floods every 7 years? It should be a lot more expensive than it currently is. It's all the time we have for the financial exchange. I'm clearly heated. I need to sit in some air conditioning for a little while.
Take it easy over there.
Markets are in mixed territory. S&P and Dow up, NASDAQ down a little bit. We're going to take a quick break for the next 22 hours, but we will be back at it tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day.